Hello, welcome to HiveMind. This is the speaker. I'm joined today with the Sharp Edge and Corey Diggs. How you guys going?
Doing good.
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I've got a cold, so it's pretty shitty here in Australia.
That's poopy.
I know, but we're getting by. Today we're going to touch on a few different topics. First, let's talk about Google censorship at the moment, because that's a big one in the news.
With the Project Veritas thing that came out.
Yep.
That is a big one.
That's ridiculous. I mean, their video came out, had 50,000 likes and 1 million views in a day, and then it got taken down by YouTube.
Yep.
No, I was just going to say, I went in and downloaded it from BitChute and uploaded it onto my resources page, my Four Diggers page, and embedded it. So it's not going anywhere from there.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you did it too. I saw Louis Gohmert did it on his.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did, hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, it's the Streisand effect now. I think a lot of people are going to want to see it.
Absolutely.
Right. Yep.
So did you guys watch it?
I did.
Oh, yeah, it's bad, man.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Did you see the part about how when you searched for Hillary Clinton's emails, there was like no auto-populate, but then a bunch of things showed up for like Donald Trump's emails? Like, what?
Yep.
Oh, well,
I know. And I actually knew that because of their algos. So just for fun, I just want to go through some of these. I went and did my own little experiment, and I was curious to see what would come up on some of these searches. So I already knew it was doing this because, I research all the time. So I have to get really creative and workarounds if I'm using Google. There's certain advantages to using Google, but I use other search engines as well. So I type in, I want to, and the first thing that populates is, I want to eat your pancreas. I'm like, what?
Oh my God.
No, there must be something to this, right? So I look it up, and it's this Japanese animated, it's like an anime movie. And honestly, I pulled it up in Wikipedia, and it doesn't even really give a description of what it's about, but they say it's I want to eat your pancreas, also known as Let Me Eat Your Pancreas. So I don't know what this thing's about, but it was a movie that came out in 2018, some Japanese animated movie. So that was an interesting one.
So in America, Google is trying to say the number one thing when people type in "I want to" is
eat your pancreas, right? And I highly doubt that many people are searching this, so it wouldn't make sense for it to be number one. So then I type in just Hillary Clinton, and we have this beautiful Hillary Clinton net worth, Hillary Clinton college, book, wiki, biography, Park Ridge home, Instagram. Nothing negative about Hillary Clinton there.
Of course not.
Then I type in Hillary Clinton investigation, and I get nothing, completely blank. So then I type in child pedophile, nothing, blank. Not allowed to search that. I type in did Chelsea Clinton, blank. Steele Dozier, blank, nothing. No search results come up for that. I'm surprised. James should have done that one on the show, because obviously there should be millions coming up for that one. Then I typed in was Hillary Clinton, and it fills it with one thing, in a sorority. Yeah, because that's what people want to know right now.
Jeez.
Then I typed in when will, and the first thing that comes up, I die. It's populated with other things too, but the last one on there is Uber go public, because people want to know that. So then I type in are pedophiles, and I get blank. Not allowed to search it. Did Hillary, and the only thing it populates with is win the popular vote. Did Hillary win the popular vote? Yep. And then the last test I did was who should, and this one's interesting. So here's the list in order. Who should I vote for? Who should I vote for 2020? And I guarantee if we click on those, we know what's going to populate in the organic searches there.
Oh, of course.
Though they're not really organic. The Bowles draft, get measles booster, get the shingles vaccine. Who should take PrEP? Who should get the measles vaccine? So we have 3 in here that have to do with vaccines. Just for the search, who should? So I thought that was an interesting little test.
O'Keefe, he talked about, he did a search on men can, and the
right.
populations were have babies, have periods, and cook.
Right. Unbelievable. No transgender agenda there going on.
I'm sure if you go to the next page, it will be next before anything logical.
And the guy who was the whistleblower was explaining this is all under their quote unquote ML fairness rules, internal rules, which means basically that regardless of whether something is searched more than something else, if it's not deemed fair by Google, then those populations are just deleted.
Yeah, and I just want to say this is interesting for me because about probably 8 to 10 years ago, I used to have an online store selling some organic products, and I was a search engine optimization expert. I mean, I had mastered Google algorithms. I spent thousands of hours at this, mastering it all. Within 3 months, I had all my major keywords ranking within the top 3 on the first page of Google. I had it down. I knew how they operated. I knew their algorithms. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I was beating out like Macy's, JCPenney, Bed Bath & Beyond, the bigger companies. And then all of a sudden, they decide to bring in, I believe the first one back then started with Panda. So they bring in the Japanese to alter their algorithms, and they claimed that they were trying to make it more user-friendly for what people were searching when, as far as products related. That was the big thing I was paying attention to, obviously. And so what they did is they decided, this is what they say, they decided that people would rather have bigger known companies come up in the search results first before, the smaller companies.
Small, organic, mom and pop.
We dropped from like number 1 to number 10 on page 1. And let me tell you, just dropping from number 1 to number 3 cuts your traffic in half. It's that substantial. People don't scroll. People don't want to click. People are lazy. They don't want to have to search out and compare the products. They just figure, oh, Google's going to put the best top 3 in there. This must be what everyone else is shopping for, so this is what I want too. And they literally obliterated SEO as everyone knew it back then. So what this game they're doing now is no surprise to me at all. I mean, I've been suspecting this has been building for quite some time.
This is like hardcore journalism that should come back. I mean, this shit should be reported on all the major news networks. Of course it won't, because they're all in hand. But this is actively proving from documents from Google that they're 100% trying to influence an election.
And so they're going to continue to hammer, what have we heard for the past 2 years? That the Russians are involved and that we have all these bots and they're affecting social media. But no one's going to speak up about Google, the number 1 search engine that everyone uses, that they're the ones that are ultimately meddling in the elections.
With actual proof.
Right.
And employees, and not shit kicker employees. Right? These are high ups in the company that are actively telling you that, they don't want Donald Trump elected.
And, and it's not just the elections. They're controlling, like, as we just said, that's why I wanted to show those little tests I did, because you cannot. Now, I can understand if you're trying to search like child pornography or something, they actually pop up this little warning. So you get like a blank page and it says, warning, this is, illegal, da, 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 da. That's great. But when you're searching, I had even searched like arrested pedophile and some different combinations with that. And it just keeps coming up blank, which brings us to the whole, they're trying to control the narrative of many agendas, not just with the election, but with, the transgender push, the pedophilia push.
Obviously, the vaccine push.
Right? Yeah, definitely. I've taken some screenshots over the past week because there's been some really, like the Teen Vogue. You guys saw that one, right? Where they say...
they're getting even worse now. Now they're pushing Marxism. I think we have to do another video about that as well.
Yeah. They say, yes, sex work is real work. And this is in Teen Vogue. And there's a whole article on it.
Teen Vogue. Insane.
Right.
Vogue.
Right. Which starts at 13.
13. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I saw another article of them that was talking about Karl Marx and really trying to push Marxism. Because we know anything left of center now is pretty much Marxism, Maoism.
Mm-hmm. And like Edge was talking about the last time, in our last podcast, we were talking about the dangers of this as well with the children and the genderism and the identity crisis. And then we see in Colorado that there was a high school student charged in a classmate's death during a Colorado school shooting, and it had to do with the classmates repeatedly mocking his gender identity. So he sought revenge on these classmates. So it's, this is dangerous stuff that they're doing psychologically to children, and I don't doubt that we're going to start to see more violence and hate crimes and stuff around this.
Like I said, they create their own problems. I mean, they like anarchy.
Well, I think what they do is they create the problem so that they can come in with their solution. It's how they drive their agenda. Create the problem, swoop in, will save everything with their solution. Everybody's in chaos, so they accept that solution. And, nobody questions it.
Except for all of us.
Yeah, there is a large demographic that is actively working against them now. Hence why they're censoring all these people, hence why they're taking all these influences that are either centrist or right-leaning, or even classical liberals, like people like Tim Pool or Dave Rubin. And they're censoring them and they're bringing them down. They're trying to cut there because they do have an influence. They do have large platforms and large voices. So you have to silence these people. Yeah, but I think it's getting more prevalent now. Like that's another reason why I wanted to get into making videos, because I think it really is the best way to fight.
Right, and the more we push, the more they push back, and the more outlandish they get. And it's like you go in Twitter now and you scroll through, and it's just lie. And then in Sacramento, at the did you guys see that one at the state capitol in Sacramento? They flew the LGBTQ pride flag next to the American flag. So we're now taking sexual orientation and putting it right up there with the American flag. It's ludicrous.
Like that shit is actually mind blowing to me, because that's not equality. I mean, like if you want equality, everyone should be under one flag when it comes to nationalism.
Right.
So if you want to fly an American flag, if you want to fly an Australian flag, gays are represented under that flag. Why do you need your own? That starts looking like you're trying to conquer, not that you're trying to be equal.
Exactly. Good point. And then the letter, did you guys see that letter that went out to the from the Department of Education? Get out. In New York.
No, we didn't.
I saw that. I saw that.
You saw it?
Yeah.
Since they mandated the vaccines there and they removed religious exemption, they sent out a letter on dated June 18th to parents and guardians regarding the vaccines that their children are required to get. And it's very, I'm just going to read this real quick. Do you guys mind? Because it's pretty short.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it says on June 13th, 2019, Governor Andrew Cuomo signed legislation removing non-medical exemptions from school vaccination requirements for children. This means that as of June 13th, 2019, there is no longer a religious exemption to the requirement that children be vaccinated against measles and other disease to attend either, note, listen to this list, public, private, or parochial school for students in pre-kindergarten through 12th grade or childcare settings. So they are covering the gamut and basically saying homeschool, and you can, when they say childcare settings, to me, that means they're including, daycares and everything. So
right.
One would assume that if you want to bring your child in there, they're going to say, oh, well, is she vaccinated? Kind of like when you go board your dog and they say, well, does he have all his shots? They go on to say, children. So they set dates. And that you have to have the first dose by June 28th. Also, by June 14th, parents and guardians of such children must show that they have made an appointment for all required follow-up date. And here's the key part in their last paragraph. Should you fail to comply with the state immunization mandate, your child will not be permitted to attend summer school beginning July 8th, 2019, or school in September until such time that requirements are complete. In the event that you do not follow this mandate, we will be reaching out to Child Protective Services to alert them of your non-compliance. Unfreaking believable, because most of us are very familiar with Child Protective Services.
This is huge.
Yeah.
Very heavy-handed. I have a friend who lived in New York and didn't vaccinate her children because she has a history of autism in her family. So the risks she felt were higher. She did it under, her religious exemption rights. And if she was still living in New York today, she would have had to do that, knowing and stressing that, there's always that question in your mind, what is this going to do?
And everyone and anyone who's ever looked into Child Protective Services, I mean, geez, look at the 2019 Trafficking in Human Persons report that they just put out, and they actually state that they list, they kind of bullet point in the main letter prior to that report, which I have linked in my 4Diggers. If anyone wants to read it's like 500 pages long. But no, you can keyword search though. It's great. And there's maps and there's, they have their tiers 1 through 3. So you can see where most of the human trafficking is happening. And so in the United States, they point out that a high number of children that are trafficked are in the foster care system. Well, how did they get to the foster care system? DPS. I mean, there's millions of stories out there on this. So people should really pay attention to this. And I'm just like picturing these parents in New York. Like, if I knew what was going on with CPS and the foster care system and human trafficking, my heart would skip a beat after reading this, thinking, oh my God, they're going to come for my child,
Right. I have to choose between vaccinating my child, which have personal reasons for not doing that, or having CPS contact me and threatening to take my child away.
Right.
I read a story today where a woman out of California had won a lawsuit because she had a baby. She has some sort of disorder. I think it was narcolepsy, but she has to sleep a full night's sleep. And after you have a baby, of course, they're up all night. So she hired a nanny to do the night shift, basically. Wakes up in the morning. The baby is crying uncontrollably. After a little while, she takes the baby to the hospital. They find out the baby has a skull fracture, likely caused, under the nanny's watch. And they contact CPS immediately. They take the child. They do a full examination of the child. They find out there's no real other evidence of child abuse. But while they have the child in their custody, the doctor that was overseeing everything gave the child 13 vaccinations without the mother's consent or awareness.
Oh my God.
And so she found out afterwards, after they had returned the child and cleared her, and then sued.
Wow. Unreal.
I was going to move on to some good news, which was the Arkansas State Senator Jeremy Hutchinson getting indicted.
Yeah.
I know you're pretty happy about that one.
I was very happy about that. I was. And it was quite interesting because there's two different cases that he was indicted on one a while back, and he was just recently indicted on the one with preferred family health care. Both of those I covered in the Arkansas Swamp Report that I had done last year. But the most recent one in preferred family health care, they said the investigations were ongoing, which they still are. And I still believe we are going to see more indictments on that. But they said that the trial wasn't going to be set until 2021. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow. So he pled guilty to the first indictment. And I don't have the specifics in front of me, but it was numerous counts of, was it like bribery or wire fraud? It was basically, taking money. Taking money. Taking money. And then in the preferred family healthcare, it was taking money for because that's the one I'm more familiar with, campaign donations, and also working for them as a attorney, kind of as cover in order to get paid so that he could then assist in altering legislation. So the way that the press release from the Justice Department read is that he pled guilty to the first case, but that he's expected to also plead guilty to the preferred family healthcare case. I want to say, didn't they say there was another court date coming up either at the end of June or in July, I believe. So what I find interesting about that is they were going to push that one to 2021. So it makes me just wonder, did he roll on some people in the second one and they agreed to lump it into a plea agreement with the two indictments? You know what I mean?
Right.
There's some that are already serving time. But then there's some, such as Henry Wilkins IV, which is also a former state senator, who pled guilty last year, and they keep pushing back his sentencing. So you don't do that unless you're working out a plea deal, and I suspect he's rolling on some people too.
Are they all from Arkansas?
So the investigation spans across Arkansas and Missouri. Henry Wilkins was a former state senator of Arkansas, but I want to say he also was out in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma seems familiar too. Like there was some stuff going down in Oklahoma with this preferred family healthcare thing.
Well, yeah, because that's one of their states. They were in Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Oklahoma,
Georgia.
and Kansas.
Okay.
So they have facilities that operate out of all 5 states. And then there were lobbyists involved, and obviously several employees and executives from Preferred Family Healthcare. But we're still waiting on. There was like one other legislator from Arkansas and 3 from Missouri. We're still waiting to hear who these people are.
Slowly but surely.
Yep.
Fuck, it does my head in, man. It takes so long, but I knew it would.
Yeah, we're in this for the long game. It's just
Right.
That's how it goes. You got to be patient.
It does get frustrating because there is so much, like touching back on the censorship issue, there is so much against us. Like would be surprised if most of our videos get hit back and shit like that. You just got to keep pushing through. You just got to keep trying different platforms and getting your word out there and making your voice heard, really, and showing people what is happening that's not getting pushed out there.
Exactly. Like Mr. George Soros.
Okay.
Another dig that you recently just did. He's your stereo. Like, I know a little bit about him. I probably have to dig in a little bit more to get more facts. But he's your stereotypical Batman villain.
Yes.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's just funding all this shit across the world, which is all fucking destructive.
It's like the plague. He's everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like he's getting a lot of money from this global fund, which is part of what you dug on in your latest article.
Yeah, I have a huge dig on that, and I have a lot more on George Soros. I just, I was trying to extract some information to put together a shorter piece, just to get 4 scoops out on him, and wanted to kind of tie it into the Global Fund with his little outfit that he had rolling over in Moscow, Russia, and also some ties that he has with Ukraine. And so by all means, this is not comprehensive. I just wanted to point out some key things. It's always fun too, because a lot of people will take my stuff and then they'll dig deeper. So I love that.
Yeah, I love that too.
So yeah, he had the Open Health Institute, and I was digging into something else when I came across this press release from 2003. It was a press release from the Open Society Foundations, which is George Soros. He had an office in Moscow. He had a couple there that were under, it was the Open Society Institute and then the Open Health Institute, and they were operating out of the same office. And it was kind of curious and interesting because they had just recently received an $88 million grant from the Global Fund. And just so everyone's clear, the Global Fund, it was founded in 2002 by Bill and Melinda Gates, the late Kofi Annan, Jeffrey Sachs, and Amir Adaran, I don't know how to say his name, and it's headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, of course. And it's the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, which is ultimately a giant slush fund. So they were, and I'm going to have a lot coming out on that in the following months to come. But his offices were taken over by 40 unidentified armed individuals who forcibly evicted the employees and carted away documents, computers, and other belongings. So we don't really know the story why or what's going on there. He kind of got the boot from Russia in 2015. They labeled him, I think it was called like an undesirable organization, I think is how they referred to it, which essentially he was operating out of there for the purposes of distributing information and condoms to prisoners, like the LGBTQ community, transgenders, prostitutes, criminals. And I mean, it actually says this in their site, that was their focus, assumably because there's probably a higher level of AIDS there. But he was given between 2003 and 2017, which is interesting because Russia flagged them in 2015 as that's where I was, an undesirable organization, which is kind of similar to what we have over here when we put sanctions on people. It's like the assets, everything's frozen. You're not allowed to deal with those people. The Global Fund gave OHI $129 million. That's a lot of condoms there. So
that's a lot of dingers.
What I found so interesting though is the fact that I started digging into it further, and I see that they actually control quite a bit of the narrative on the Global Fund. Soros organizations, that is. I mean, they have so many, it's hard to keep up with them all. They wrote like over 95 documents. They have, I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but the Soros organizations wrote all of the, health related documents pertaining to the Global Fund. And in fact, Dr. Paul Farmer, who was like chief editor of a journal, he also wrote, it was called the Health and Human Rights Journal. Okay, so that's Paul Farmer's gig. And Paul Farmer is part of Partners in Health. His co-founder is Jim Young Kim, our former president of the World Bank. These people all go way back. So they're controlling the narrative on that, kind of much in the same way how I say that like the bigger universities work with them and they provide their little, reports, which then everyone takes as factual, and it allows them to carry out their agendas.
That's what I was just going to say. So Bill Gates's global agenda through this Global Fund, Soros is manipulating the narrative and the data to skew it to fit their narrative, basically,
right,
of what they're doing.
Right. So basically we have this circle. So everyone gets this. The Global Fund, okay, I believe there are over, I counted it a year ago, so I'm going by memory. I believe there are over 30 governments involved. So here's what happens. Taxpayers pay into these governments. The governments say, hey, we're going to fund the Global Fund for this wonderful thing, and we're going to save the world from AIDS. So they put all their money into the Global Fund, Bill Gates' organization. The Global Fund then says, we're going to grant out, because we're like the mechanism, the money mechanism that grants out, that helps oversee this, so that these various NGOs and health ministries and organizations can then go out, boots on the ground, and actually help these people in some way or provide the medications. And if you look at who they're distributing the money to, that's where you start to see, okay, this is a major freaking slush fund. So in addition to George Soros, I mean, just as an example, if you do a search for the United States, because of course this money is all going out to other countries. So if you do a search for the United States, what comes up is Catholic Relief Services. So the Catholic Relief Services puts this money out to the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and this money goes out to other countries to help fight AIDS. They've given them over $500 million. They have given Planned Parenthood over $28 million for their work in Ghana and Indonesia. And I mean, I could go on and on and on. The point is, there's not a lot of oversight here. So basically they put up these websites and they say, we've saved 500,000 people from AIDS this year. Or, you know what I mean? There's no way to verify this.
Because George Soros said it, Corey.
Exactly. And they all have the same similar websites. And there's a lot of, in addition to the governments, we have tons of NGOs, we have some celebrities, we have former presidents, a lot of people involved in this. So I will be hitting on all of that in the near future. And so then also, I just a couple quick things on the Ukraine, because George Soros has International Renaissance Foundation out of
How many foundations does this motherfucker have?
A lot. I can tell you exactly how many, the Clintons have, but I don't know with Soros. I've seen lists circulate out there. Dude, it's a lot. I mean, he's in over 120 countries. So, he's got everything.
So over 100.
Yeah, at least. Well, I'm sure well over that. He'll create these offshoot organizations where his name isn't necessarily attached, but he's the one funding it. So, yeah. It's quite large. And so he has this International Renaissance Foundation in the Ukraine, and they've worked together Since 2009, they worked with USAID, of course, and the German Society for Technical Cooperation in co-financing the writing of the proposal to the Global Fund on behalf of Ukraine. So he was involved in that. He's awarded grants to Viktor Pinchuk, which has direct ties into this whole Spygate, Steele Dozier deal, the Clintons.
Exactly.
And I have links in here connecting to those stories. And then, of course, Soros founded the Ukraine Crisis Media Center with the Ukrainian government, which also plays a role in the whole Trump-Russia collusion narrative.
Exactly, yeah. So many connections there.
Yeah, and then I came across this other interesting organization that I haven't had time to dig into, and I thought, well, maybe if I put this in here, other people will start digging into it. It happens to connect with another fellow with the last name Pinchuk. Now, I was not able to track down a family connection there, but it wouldn't surprise me. And there's 10 partners in this, and it's called the Ukrainian Strategy NGO. So I encourage people to look into that, any diggers out there.
Interesting.
I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, I think we did.
Lots going on this week.
I know, and lots will go on next week and the week after that.
It's never ending.
All right, let's leave it there.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Feel free to share, like, and subscribe. Visit us at our website and visit Corey at her website at corysdigs.com. All the information will be in the description below. We'll see you next time right here on Hive Mind.
Stay ravenous.